Hello and welcome back. This video is going to be about an initial deployment or the initial installation, basic configuration of a Palo Alto Networks next generation firewall. So in the last video, we actually deployed this firewall inside of Proxmox. And so from the console of Proxmox or a console of whatever hypervisor that you deployed your firewall in, by default, it's going to try to get a DHCP address. So from here, from the console, when we log in the first time with admin and admin, it's going to require us to change the password. And then we'll be at the prompt here. So the greater than sign is the default prompt. So if we do a show interface management, we can actually get the IP address that it received through DHCP. Make sure you put in HTTPS. You're going to get the certificate warning because it's using a self-signed certificate. And from here, we can log in with admin as the username and whatever the password is that you set. Takes a moment to log in. I always clear off these welcome messages here. And then it's asking us for telemetry. We'll just say okay. We'll talk about that in another video. So from here, we're at the dashboard. We want to go to device, and then we want it under setup. Very first thing we need to do is go to interfaces. We need to set up the management interface. So for my setup, I'm going to change the type to static. Here I'm going to provide my IP address and my net mask and my default gateway. So from here, I want to be able to get to my management interface with HTTPS, with SSH. I also want to be able to ping. If this interface were being used for SNMP or user ID, you would need to activate these as well. This is essentially the management interface profile for the management interface. If you only wanted to allow specific IP addresses, you can configure those here. So the next thing we need to set up under services, and under the services button here, we need to click the little gear to edit. And inside the gear, we can configure our DNS settings. I'm going to add just some Cloudflare and Google's DNS. And then under the NTP tab, we can actually add in our NTP servers. And I'm just using the default ntp.org servers. And then we click OK. If you need to configure service routes, so service route configuration is here under service features. By default, everything goes through the management interface. You need to configure different routes for different types of traffic. So in later videos, we'll talk about LDAP configuration, and you may need to send LDAP through your LAN interface, or if you need to send NetFlow traffic through a different interface, or different things like that. So you have options of which interfaces, which traffic goes through. For this lab environment initial configuration right now, we're going to leave everything as use the management for all. So once we have those settings configured on the management tab under general settings, for me, I'm going to go ahead and configure a host name. And mine is lab FW01. And I'm also going to change my time zone to where I am. And I'm also going to go and I'm going to enable the advanced routing engine. So for Palo Alto PAN-OS 12.1 and higher, you're going to need to enable the advanced routing engine. And actually, I'm going to back myself up. I'm going to say OK. I'm going to commit first. So everything that we configure goes into a candidate configuration profile. And then the candidate configuration, we commit that, then we're actually merging that into the running configuration. So this is going to take a minute. When it completes the commit, we'll go back into general and we'll enable advanced routing. Okay, so my commit is at 99% and it's sitting here because we changed the IP address. So I need to close here. Need to go up here and adjust my IP address to the 123 that we actually set it to. Go to advanced and the certificate. And now we can log in. Once we're logged back in, I'm going to go to the device tab. Under the general settings for edit, and now I'm going to activate the advanced routing engine. So this is running a migration configuration validation script that runs in the background. You can actually do this for an existing firewall where this is very necessary. There are a couple things that it's picking up on, but there's a default router. There's no configuration here, so I know that there's nothing that needs to be changed. So I can say continue. Then I'm going to click yes to go ahead and migrate. Now that it's enabled, it'll take just a second and it's going to clear itself out and reset the UI. Now I need to perform a commit to commit the new configuration that it has written. So when it converted from the logical routers to the advanced routers, I'm sorry, from the virtual routers to the logical routers, it actually changes the configuration. So now it's committing that from the candidate config into the running config. Okay, our commit is successful. And in the warning here, it tells you that the advanced routing is changed to enabled, and this requires a reboot to take effect. So to reboot, you can either go to the command line and you can do the request restart system command, or you can go to operations and you can reboot the device. So we're going to reboot and then we'll come back when the firewall's back up. Okay, our firewall has rebooted and we're going to log back in and then we will be able to continue the configuration. Okay, we've configured under device, we've configured our management settings for general settings. We have set the host name, we've configured a time zone, we've enabled advanced routing. Under services, we've configured DNS and NTP settings. And under interfaces, we've configured our management IP address with the static IP and configured our interface profile for management. Now that we've done that, the next thing that we need to do is we actually need to license this firewall. So if you look at the dashboard, you'll notice that the serial number for the firewall, this is a virtual firewall, says unknown. You would not see this on a physical firewall. So for a virtual firewall, it is unknown now because it has no licensing whatsoever on it. So if I go to device and I go to licenses, you will see here that there are no licenses. So I actually need to apply from my next generation firewall credit pool. I actually need to activate the device using an auth code. And then I'm going to apply my authorization code that I have for this firewall. And I'm going to say OK. And this is going to reach out to the license server at Palo Alto. It's going to validate my authorization code that I have, and it's going to apply the licenses that I have allocated through my next generation profile or deployment profile through my credits. This will take just a minute, and then we'll refresh the UI, and then we will actually be able to go back to the dashboard and see if we've had an update. All right, so now I have licenses on my firewall. I go to my dashboard. I actually have a serial number. So now that I have the firewall licensed, I can actually go in and I can begin to do updates. So the first updates that I want to perform are dynamic updates. This is where I'm going to get my antivirus, my threat prevention, wildfire, and this is determined by the licensing that you have. So in the case of my firewalls, I have advanced threat prevention, I have advanced wildfire, advanced URL filtering, advanced DNS security. So I'm going to, because of those licenses, I need to update the content for them. So the very first thing you need to do to update content is hit the button that says check now down here at the bottom corner. And it'll actually go out to Palo Alto's update servers and it's going to check for new updates. So when you configure your Palo Alto firewall, if this firewall is going through, the management interface is going through another firewall, you need to make sure that it is open to allow the management interface to talk to the Palo Alto applications and fully qualified domain names. There is a list of all of the ports and domains that need to be allowed for a Palo Alto firewall. So under my application and threats, the bottom one is always the newest one. So the very first thing I have to do is download the update. And then once I download the update, I'll be able to install the update. Okay, the download is completed. Now I have the ability to install the update. So I'm going to go ahead and install. Okay, the content update is installed for application and threats. So I'm going to close that out. I'm going to go ahead and do the wildfire download and installation real quick. And then I will come back when that is complete. Okay, so now we have application and threats. We have our wildfire updated. Once we load application and threats, we can then do check now again. And then at this point, it's going to go back out and knowing that we have the application and threat database, it's going to actually show us the new content updates for antivirus. To make sure that if you don't see those, make sure you have this one not only downloaded but installed and then check again. If you have this in an air-gapped environment or you do not have the ability to connect it to updates.paloaltonetworks.com, you can download the update files from the customer support portal and you can upload them individually. So next to check now, there's an upload button. And then you could upload them. Once you upload them, you can install them from the file. We're going to go ahead and take our antivirus here. We're going to go ahead and download and then we will go ahead and install the antivirus. And then at that point, we'll be ready to move on to the next step. Okay, so now we have updated dynamic updates. We have antivirus, we have application and threats, and we have our wildfire. So now the next thing we need to do, so we have licensed our VM, we have done our dynamic updates. We do not need to do any software updates because this is an initial install. Now we need to go to our network tab and we actually need to configure our network interfaces. So if you didn't see the Proxmox installation video, we have 4 interfaces configured. So Ethernet 1.1 and Ethernet 1.2 are both WAN interfaces. Ethernet 1.3 is our LAN, and Ethernet 1.4 is our DMZ. So for the very first interface, I'm going to go ahead and click on the interface. I can give it a comment. So this is my WAN 1 interface. And then for the type, this is going to be a layer 3 interface. We're actually going to put an IP address on it. It's going to participate in routing. If you'll notice that we have several types of interfaces. We have a TAP, an HA interface, a virtual wire, layer 2, layer 3, and aggregate Ethernet. All of these we'll discuss in some future videos. So for the configuration, we need to assign a router. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a new router. This router, I'm going to call it default router. And then we're just going to leave it as is. So I'm going to say okay. And there are multiple ways that you can go about this. So I can, as I'm going to go here and create a zone, I can go and create the zones under zones, which I'll show in just a minute, just so you have that understanding. Or you can just click here and say create new zone, or just like we did, create a new router, and it'll actually take you to the same context where we'll actually go in a minute. So I'll click new zone, and for this one, it's going to be my outside. It could be untrust, it could be public, it could be whatever you want to label that. I'm going to say okay. You have to have a security zone for the Palo Alto to pass traffic. If it does not belong to a zone, it cannot pass traffic. Everything security-wise in a Palo firewall is zone-based security. So when you're configuring your policies, you have a minimum of putting a zone in the policy, and every interface, if it doesn't belong to a zone, it will not pass traffic. So under IPv4, we're going to go ahead and click target static. We're going to say add, and then here I'm going to actually apply the IP address this interface will have. So you notice that I have to put the CIDR notation on here. So in my case, it's 10.249.1.2/24. If you had any SD-WAN configuration, you would set that up here. For us, we're going to go to advanced. Remember when we modified the management interface, we actually checked the boxes for a management interface profile to allow HTTPS, to allow SSH, to allow ping. So since this is an external facing interface, I'm going to create a new management profile. And this management profile is completely separate than anything we did for the management interface. These will be available for all other types of network interfaces. So for this one, I'm going to call it ping only. And I'm going to allow ping. Then I want to say okay. I'm going to go ahead and complete the configuration for my other interfaces. We'll have the exact same Ethernet 2. This is my WAN 2 interface. We're going to set it for a layer 3. A logical router, going to be default router. My security zone is outside. I have an IP address for this one of 10.249.2.2/24. And under advanced, I'm going to select the same management interface profile. And I'm going to say okay. So now I've configured these 2 interfaces. So now I'm going to jump a little bit and show you how you would configure the other pieces before I configured the other interfaces. So if we go to zones, here you see the outside zone we created. You see where it's applied to both interfaces. It is a layer 3 zone. So the zone type has to match the interface types. You got layer 3 zone, you got layer 3 interfaces, layer 2 zone, layer 2 interfaces. So I'm going to create a new zone, and I'm going to call this one inside. And I'm going to make it a layer 3 zone because I'm going to have layer 3 interfaces that are in here. And for my inside, if I have device ID, so if I have my IoT security license, I could check that box saying that I'm going to be looking for that type of information to collect. If I'm doing user ID, I would check this box right here to look for that type of user information. If you want to build out zone protection profiles, you can add them here. And you can also build them outside of here too as well. I'm going to create an inside. I'll also go ahead and create my DMZ. I'm going to set it to layer 3 as well. Say OK. So now I have my other 2 zones. So down here on the left under routing, we have logical routers. So in pre-advanced routing engine, you would have seen virtual routers here, as opposed to now you have logical routers. We'll have another video going through the difference between virtual routers and logical routers. But in our new versions of PAN-OS 12.1 and up, we're going to be using logical routers in our advanced routing engine. So under logical routers, you can see where I created the default router. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete the router that was created automatically. And then if we scroll down here on the left under network profiles, interface management, you'll see the ping only management profile. If you wanted to have an internal management profile that can allow you to manage the firewall, so just like we did on our management interface, you can also have an HTTPS and SSH and a ping internally for your internal interface. So I'm just going to go ahead and create this one just so you can kind of see how this works. So we allow HTTPS, SSH, and ping on this profile. And then that's all we need to do here. If you want to create zone protection profiles like we saw in our zone configuration, you would configure them here under zone protection. And there are a whole lot of other things that you can configure that we will touch on in some further videos in the future. So I'm going to go back to interfaces here, and interface 3 is our LAN interface. We're going to make it type layer 3. I'm going to select my default router. I'm going to select my security zone that we created inside. Then I'm going to go to my IPv4 and I'm going to put the IP address. And then I'm going to go to advanced and I'm going to select the management profile of internal management profile since this is my inside interface. And then from my last interface, I'm going to go ahead and configure my DMZ interface. And I'm going to make it a layer 3 interface as well. It's going to be a part of my default router. It's going to be in the DMZ zone. And then for my DMZ, I'm just going to give it a ping only management profile. And I will say OK. At this point, we have configured routing. We've configured basic routing. We've configured our zones. And we have configured our interfaces. We've created an interface management profile. And now we're ready to commit these changes. So I'm going to go ahead and hit commit. And I'm going to commit these changes. And once the changes are committed, I'll come right back. Okay, our changes have committed successfully. So now I should be able to close this. And now you can see the link state. These boxes have turned green, which means that they are connected. So in my case, I have a Proxmox network that is created for my LAN. I have a network that is created for my DMZ. And I have 2 networks, one for each of my WAN interfaces, and they actually go to a VIOS router that will simulate my internet connectivity. At this point, we can go ahead and do some troubleshooting if we want, just to verify that we do have some connectivity. So we're going to go ahead and switch over to our device tab. And then from our device tab down here on the left, we're going to go to troubleshooting. You can do this from the command line, or you can do it from this troubleshooting menu in the UI. But if we select our test, we're going to change it to ping. And then I'm going to source from 10.249.1.2. And I'm going to ping 10.249.1.1, which is the interface on my router, and click execute. It's actually going to run through the test here. Usually if the test runs pretty quick, then it's succeeded. If it takes a long time, then it's probably failing. You need to click on where it says test results here in the middle, and then it will actually show you the result details. So you see here we completed our ping, so I can ping my WAN 1 interface. I'm going to switch this to 2.2, trying to ping to 2.1, and execute. This is my WAN 2 interface. And we can get to here. So fundamentally, from this point, we should be able to get out, or at least have connectivity to our WAN. There are a few more things that would need to happen before we actually do that. We would need make sure we have policies created. So we would need a security policy, and we would need a NAT policy. But I'm going to stop here and cover policies in the next video. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you again.